I'm not going to start with any easy questions.
What would you do if you couldn't fail?
I was vulnerable in the sense of I was just who I was.
In my journey as an entrepreneur, I really found who I am as a human.
I was much more emotionally available to everyone because I was much more balanced.
Finding the grace and the humor in the balance of it all.
Whatever happens in the gut happens in the brain, and whatever happens in the brain happens in the gut.
Do you have a specific morning routine?
I was able to sort of reset my nervous system by getting involved with the cold.
Allow ourselves to have imperfection.
Absolutely had mentors, absolutely 100% had coaches.
A wake-up call to me that I could not try to be something I'm not.
Seeing results of just isolating the breathing was having these tremendous impacts on my physiology.
Work at a gratitude practice.
What the hell am I doing? Can I really do this? Is this really worth it?
90+% of the decisions that we make today actually stem from fear.
When was I proud of myself today?
I think for me, it's really inspiring people to step out. And you don't have to step all the way out.
Then there are these other moments of magic and joy.
If we can just push into discomfort, we actually find that on the other end, there's a lot of benefit.
What's your purpose?
Nothing starts without a plan. Nothing ever goes to plan.
I think we're going to see a new realm of healing that ultimately wasn't available to us.
If we can bring a practice into our lives that helps us be more vulnerable.
So much of entrepreneurship, I truly believe, to anybody on this call is grit.
I got involved with Wim. I just love the guy. He's just a great human. When people are on the path, they shine.
We so often convert things into flaws as opposed to strengths.
We all deserve to be happy, healthy, and strong.
I'm so thrilled that this content is getting out there, that you guys are promoting bold and vulnerable message and aspirations for people, because I hope that we can all really live that every day.
Hey, this is Jessica.
And Svetlana, and you're listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast,
Where we aim to inspire others to live authentically through sharing the bold and vulnerable stories of peak performers across a variety of industries.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. This is me, Svetlana, and we've got Jess on here, and we've got Teal, and we're just going to kick it right off. We've got the wonderful love coach, relationship coach, Teal, and I'm just going to jump right in and ask you, how did you decide to become a love coach?
Hey ladies, it's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me on here. My name is Teal Elisabeth. I am an international love and relationship coach, and I specifically focus on supporting ambitious, driven women, boss babes like all of us, to be able to attract and embody love and the relationship that they want. And specifically honing in on self-love and embodying and embracing our femininity within us. So the reason I got into love coaching is, it's a funny story. I actually studied biology in college. I wanted to save the sea turtles and save the world, and I still do. But really, I've really realized in the last probably 10 years of my own, for a long time, I went through my own dating struggles and relationships as an ambitious woman, and I couldn't figure out why I had such a hard time connecting to men. And it was something that, I was able to have all the other areas in my life sorted out. I had the job, I had the house, I had the, friends and family and all this stuff, but I could not have the relationship that I wanted. And I was single for a very long time and struggled. And it's something that I've seen as a big, big challenge in our modern day world as ambitious women, is that we have gotten into this mode and this energy of being so driven that it's actually subconsciously pushing men away in a lot of ways. And so this was something that I wanted to figure out for my own self, and then I wanted to be able to help other women to be able to have the same success. And so I became a relationship coach. Maybe before then, I dove into a bunch of spirituality and self-love and relationship principles and work, and was able to completely 180 my relationship and my love life, and attracted my now sweetheart. We've been together for over 6 years, and now we're traveling the world together. And so I just knew that, like, if I was able to shift this so dramatically, that I knew that I had to step into this role for other women as well.
That's so beautiful. I love that. And so when you decided to help women, you decided that this was what you wanted to do. This was your passion. How did you go about kicking off your business? And, how long did it take you in terms of trial and error to see success and to see that you were helping people the way that you wanted?
Yeah, that's a great question. So after becoming a relationship coach, I started just kind of coaching women on the side as a hobby while I was still working in the corporate world. So it was something I was doing for probably about 5 years before I really jumped into becoming an entrepreneur. And it was one of those things that I wasn't ever really sure when was the right time to just quit my job and do this full time. But my girlfriend came to me, one day, and she's like, "We should start a business together. We should do a coaching business together." And I said, "Sure, why not? Let's do this fun little side hobby thing." And that kind of started building and building. We started creating this whole community of women and coaching. And then we hired a business coach to really take it to the next level. And that's when it really kind of pushed it into high gear. And the business coach really helped us to see what we needed to do to step it up. And what that meant was actually separating our little business together and going our own separate ways so that I could really focus on my ideal client and she could focus on her ideal client. So it kind of happened without me really being ready for it, but just kind of organically flowing from a hobby into a real thing. But it wasn't until I really decided to start traveling. My partner and I wanted to travel the world. We wanted to travel for a really long time. We set a date and we said, okay, by this day we're gonna quit our jobs. We're gonna sell our whole life apartment, sell everything and take this jump. And I knew at that point I had 1 year to really get this business off the ground. So probably to answer your question, it's probably been a long time coming in terms of gaining skills and experience, but the actual jump and seeing success with it has happened in the last year.
I love that. And I just want to point out what you first mentioned was that you guys had this side thing that you were doing, and it grew more and more into this passion. And the first step that you took that I heard was that you got your own coach, which I think a lot of people out there are scared to get a coach. And even people that are coaches. So you are a love coach, right? You want to be coaching others, but you still got your own coach to help you in the areas of business to kick off your business. And I think that that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs will try to bypass that step. They'll try to just do everything on their own and not either create a community of people that are able to help them kick off their business and really knowledge share and give ideas, and they won't hire a coach. And I think that that's so important that you mentioned that that's one of the first things that you did, because it really gave you a direction. And if you hadn't done that, maybe you would still be, partnering with this person where you guys had totally different values, different missions, and you wouldn't be where you are today. So I just commend you for taking that first step, because I think a lot of people have a struggle with that, and they have the I can do it all myself mentality, when we really need to start locking arms and networking and realizing the power of that network and the power of those relationships and the power of coaching. So I love that. And then obviously you went on to really launch. What was and with the name of our podcast being Bold and Vulnerable, I know obviously with love you get very bold and you can get very vulnerable. So my question for you is a little bit more personal. What would you say would be the bold actions and or vulnerable risks that you took in your own life to make that relationship really last and really something that was, your love by design, if you will? Because you mentioned you'd been with your partner for 6 years. So how did you create that shift, and how responsive was your partner and open was your partner to that shift?
Yes. So for the longest time, what I didn't realize was that I had been approaching relationships the same way I was trying to approach business and careers. And I didn't even know any other way of being, because that's what we're taught, right? Like, we are taught and raised our whole life to lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg says, and be one of the guys. And I was working in, in the sales industry for a long time. So I was very competitive and very much wanting to like prove myself and be one of the guys. And so I was bringing that same energy and mentality into my relationship when we were really first off dating. And I had to really understand and realize that there is a whole nother side to my being. I really didn't even realize this. That is what I call my goddess essence. And that you really can have both, but that it's almost about taking off different hats, like putting on your work hat and being that, masculine energy, go-getter, drive, ambitious woman. But then when you're in the presence of a man that you really want to connect with deeper, being able to actually take off that work hat and put on that crown and become this open-hearted, very loving, very nurturing, feminine being. And that's the energy that really just helps men to open up their hearts and actually feel you, instead of just seeing you for what you are, but actually feeling you for what you are. And that was the biggest distinction that completely 180'd our relationship.
I love that. I love that you said taking off different hats and putting on that crown and being the queen. Have you heard of Alison Armstrong's work?
No, I haven't.
She's amazing.
She's my favorite. Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you just said that, Svetlana. She's the best.
I told you to look into her, right? Last time we talked. Good.
I'm in the middle of her course right now.
Okay, yeah. So you decided to do it, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm so happy you did. I'm really happy you did, because when you say crown, it reminds me of like Alison Armstrong's work, because she talks about, being the queen, like what it takes to be the queen. And so much of it is I feel that a lot of it is having that masculine and feminine balance as well. And I want to shift gears a little bit. And this is a question that popped up in my mind a little bit earlier when you were talking. But I want to ask you, can you recall an experience with a client of yours, right? A client that had a massive shift. Like, when was that? What was that like for you? What was the experience like? And how did that feel?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm thinking back to actually one of my very first clients who is now engaged. And I'm so happy for her, because she has just come so far, leaps and bounds. She came to me and she was so in her head, and she was so in the overthinking, overanalyzing. And she just said she was like on this treadmill of just mind chatter that would not stop. And it caused her to really not be able to sink into her heart and be in the presence of men and let them actually see her for who she really is in her heart. And through us working together, I mean, it was definitely, it was a mind battle for her to be able to like release control and let her mind just calm down a little bit. But once she was able to really connect into her heart, she realized that she could actually, as I call my business, relax into love. She was able to realize that she could lean back instead of leaning in, and that she didn't, in her direct words, I don't have to go and get the ring. That with just leaning back, I can actually just attract it to me. And that was just so powerful to hear her say that. And it made my heart light up, because I was like, yes, like this is what it's all about. And this is what I really help women to do, is to lean back and relax into love.
I love when you say what she said, bring the reins in. Is that what she said?
You don't have to go and get the ring. You can lean back. Yeah.
And I like that you mentioned earlier as well, leaning in, and how we're taught to just hustle and bustle and just sort of, make shit happen and be in this go driven world, where a lot of women are starting to put on, pants and act like, the man. And I noticed such a discord and just in the world, and this disharmony, and women that are they're becoming way more masculine. And it's exactly what you're saying, where they're approaching their life from a very masculine lens. And I can relate to that myself because I've been there. I think we've all sort of been there at some point or another, where we're very like, all right, so what's the goal? What do you want to do? Okay, when do you want to go? And it's very like, men don't like that, especially a masculine man. A masculine man does not want to be told what to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. It really is. And it's something I'm feeling. This isn't just about being a love relationship coach. And like, this is like a soul's mission that's been now downloaded into me. And I'm recognizing that like, I want to help redefine what it means to be a woman in the modern day. You know, really letting women know that they can actually have both. They can have the amazing career, they can have the respect, they can have the power, but they don't have to sacrifice the relationship, and they don't have to settle, and they don't have to be something that they're not. You know, I think a lot of times women think of femininity and being more that girly side, and they think, oh, well, that means I have to be weak, or I have to be, you know, I'm just going to be this emotional person. And it's, you can actually be able to be a strong, vulnerable woman and be able to still command that respect in the world. It is very much that queen essence. And I feel so called to really drive this movement because it's so needed right now.
When did you realize, when did it hit you like, shit, I'm not even honoring myself. I'm just being something that I'm not.
Yeah, it was definitely not even, for me, I guess it wasn't even realizing that it's not something that I wasn't. It was more about, oh shit, I have a whole nother side of my being that hasn't awakened, that is now just starting to awaken. And I remember two specific moments. One was when I was living in Huntington Beach. It was the first time I had my own apartment. I was really just owning myself and like had completely full control over my life. And I remember just like, I was doing some mirror work. It's something I love to do. It's just like standing in front of the mirror and really just connecting with my soul. And I realized, oh my gosh, like all the pieces were starting to click in after learning about relationships and doing all this self-love work, that like, I actually am this beautiful feminine goddess, and started really owning that. But unfortunately at the time, it didn't feel like it was safe to be that way. And I even started calling myself the modern goddess, and I was putting things up on Facebook, and I was getting a lot of pushback from my community. And it really made me actually retreat and like hold back and feel like that wasn't safe to be that type of woman. And so now, I think probably 4 years later, I'm like, no, I'm owning this, and I want other women to know that they can be a modern goddess as well.
How did you combat that when you got the pushback? This is for, you know, entrepreneurs that are, or people that want to have a voice and voice their beliefs and their soul desire. What would you tell them?
Yeah, it took a few years because I was pretty hurt by that. You know, I felt like I was trying to expose myself for being the authentic person that I was called to be, and it didn't feel safe to be that way. And so I know exactly how you feel, listener, if this is something that you've also struggled with. So I did retreat a little bit and just stay in what felt safe and comfortable. But I ended up doing a workshop over a weekend where they were really helping me to stand in my presence and really own my authenticity. And it was in that moment that I had the second realization of, oh shit, not only am I a modern goddess, but I need to help women of this generation really learn how to do this.
That's amazing.
I had to push through the fears.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I love that story. I love how personal it is for you, and how it almost awakened your love coachness, you know, like it awakened this part of you that you said, oh my gosh, not only do I need to step into this part of myself to be fully authentic, but I want to help other people do this as well. And it was such a huge enlightenment for you. And I love that. I definitely want to make sure that we're touching on the subject because there's a lot of people that are single right now out there. And I think that they are probably, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I feel in my heart that there's a lot of people that are struggling, men and women, with the current status of our society, all the things that go into technology. And, I think people are taught certain things by society that could potentially be harmful for them to find a true partner and to really connect. And I think you hit one of them when you said, people really not stepping into their true authenticity. I'm curious to know your thoughts on social media and dating apps and things of that nature. I mean, we don't need to name them all. Everyone knows all the dating apps that are out there. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, technology in love and how that's really affected the generation that I'm sure you're working with, to help them and or maybe not help them, and what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, that is such a great question, because it's so pervasive in our world now. It is. So talk about redefining what it means to be a woman. Not only that, redefine it in this world of social media, where our presence online is almost, it seems like, getting almost just as equal as our presence in person. So yeah, I see it as a double-edged sword. I really like dating apps a lot. I think they are a great tool, not necessarily for finding the one, but helping you find yourself. So I went on dating apps a lot when I was younger, mostly in college, because I was meeting a bunch of college frat boys, and I was just like, I am so beyond this. I want to meet a real man, but they hadn't grown up yet. So I went on dating apps. But I never really connected too well with being able to find the one through dating app, but it helped me so much with just being comfortable with who I was and really learning my likes and dislikes and just getting me more comfortable in the presence of men. And once I was really able to take off the pressure that I was putting on myself of like, oh God, like I have to like make sure that I'm showing my best self and I'm making him like me, and just looking at it more as like, this is an opportunity for me to really get to meet a really new cool person, and for me to really get to test out like how I show up and the things that I like to say and the ways I like to respond. And it really helped me learn a lot about myself and be really comfortable, so that when the right guy did show up, it was just so natural. I didn't have to be anybody than I already was. But I think in terms of social media, I think that can be a very slippery slope. And it's something that I really do. I'm not the biggest fan of it, because I think especially in love and relationships, it creates a lot of comparison. It creates a lot of unnecessary insecurities, as we all know. And it just makes for a lot of judging and a lot of just bad influences that wouldn't normally be in our heads if we were just doing our lives and meeting people organically. So I think it's something to just be really cautious about when you're on social media. And it also opens up the door for men and women to stalk each other before they even get to meet each other and make judgments about each other before even meeting each other. And that just can be really, really dangerous. So I encourage my clients to just kind of like hold off on going too deep into all of it when they're trying to date, and just focus on being their authentic self.
That's awesome. I think that's advice that I've given to friends before who have found somebody on, through a dating app, and then they'll go and look them up on Facebook or Instagram and try to find them, and they'll create those judgments beforehand, and they'll be like, oh, well, he's into this, and this, so I think I'm going to cancel the date. And so they cancel it out before it even happens. And I think that it's so important to send that message that we just need to be in the present moment. We don't need to see what the person did in their past. We don't need to see, what their status is or where they are, what they're doing. You just need to get out there. And it's almost like a test interview for yourself, because you're practicing all these ways that you want to feel comfortable in your own skin when you're in front of a man. And like you mentioned, it made you learn more about yourself than it did to learn about the other human being, whether they liked you or not, or whether they wanted to go on a second date with you or whatever it was. So I think that's so important to really take a step back from that social media, especially when you're trying to find a partner, because it can be a slippery slope. And even for people in relationships, it can be a slippery slope.
What are some of the steps? Like, what can you kind of go into, like, what's a program look like with you? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because you said it's entering into, you have your clients become their most authentic self and focus on themselves, right? So what does that look like?
Yeah, I have two really, really powerful programs that I take women through depending on what they really want to focus on. One is all about really to help you embody the feminine and become that modern goddess queen. And the other one is really taking a deep dive into self-love and self-confidence. And so for the first program, it's really, there's basically 6 big steps. And this is something that while I was traveling, I just downloaded this whole vision of exactly what I needed to take women through. It was so beautiful. Once I'd been able to step away from the corporate world and have the spaciousness to really ask myself, what do I need to teach these women? It all just poured out. So the first step is really about just getting really clear about what you want and making sure that you're articulating that to yourself, to the universe, to just sending out that energy of what it is that you really want. So you're not just stepping around in circles and, just dating whoever. Like, you know exactly what it is that you're looking for, on a feeling basis, not just in a checklist, but on a feeling basis. The second step is really just understanding this difference between masculine and feminine energy and knowing how to actually lean back, knowing the tools to step into femininity. The third part is really about clearing out any limiting blocks and beliefs that you have that may be subconsciously sabotaging how you're actually showing up and the way that you're thinking about men and relationships. There's a lot that hangs underneath the surface that we don't even realize. The fourth step is all about really embodying your own self-love and clearing out any of that just mind chatter that's telling you, that inner critic that's holding you back, and keeping you from just being loving and being that open self. And then the fifth part is all about really owning your feminine confidence. And this is what I love. I think about it in terms of being strong on the inside so that you can be soft on the outside. A lot of people, when they're in their masculine energy, they want to be confident. And so they exude it on the outside of like, look at me, I'm so great. I've got my life together. I can take care of myself. And that's a very external masculine confidence. And so I really help women to invert that inward and hold that as your core value and your core worth so that you don't have to be showcasing how great you are. You can just exude it from within. And then the fifth part is all about really helping you to manage your emotions so that you can be vulnerable and be able to own your emotions from a place of strength and communicate that in a way that actually creates intimacy and has that heart-to-heart connection. Yeah. So that's my femininity program. And then the self-love program is a 3-month program where we go really deep into really understanding the deeper workings of the subconscious and clearing out those limiting beliefs, understanding those triggers.
Like, what does that look like? Because you said this, you talk about the subconscious programs and the limiting beliefs and clearing that out. And you mentioned that, I believe, in your third step as well, right? How you'd be surprised at how it's running the show or whatever, right? Like, just an example for the listeners of like how they wouldn't know something that's running their life, right? A subconscious program that's running their life, and what can they do right now to possibly help them shift that a little bit, like a mini. Yeah.
The biggest thing that I take them through a guided workbook that helps them to really reflect and meditate. And I have a series of meditations to help them actually quiet the mind and ask questions, those deeper questions that we don't typically ask ourselves on the day-to-day, and really reflect on those areas of your life. And then through talking it out, we can usually kind of uncover the layers and understand what's really at the root of it and what's causing that. But it is hard to do just on your own, if just trying to figure out what is my limiting belief on this. But I will say that you can definitely clear out limiting beliefs by just recognizing how you're feeling. And if you're feeling triggered by anything or irritated by anything or frustrated, that's an indicator that there's something that's not, it means that you're out of alignment in some way. And so in any time you're feeling one of those emotions, just pause and recognize, okay, this is actually something that is an indicator that I'm out of alignment. So why am I feeling out of alignment? What is going on below the surface with that? And through that, you can coach yourself through and sometimes find the answer to that, and then release it and let it go and recognize, wow, this is really not serving me the way I thought it was.
Yeah. I call them unhealed wounds. It's like, how this is triggering me right now. I wonder what that's about, And you're right. It is. You can definitely peel back the onion on your own. But at the same time, I still feel like, when you have somebody guiding you through that, whatever your goal is, whether it's, you can relate this to anything, whether it's a business goal, whether it's a relationship goal, whether it's just a life goal, and there's something holding you back and you're unconscious of the program running, sometimes it's helpful to get help. The process goes by so much quicker.
Yeah.
I was just curious on, for women that might come to you, and this could fall into the limiting belief category, but perhaps women that are coming to you that are pretty broken and have struggled with a broken past that maybe resurfaces. So if I want to get like a little bit more specific, I think that a really good example of this would be somebody who was who faced distrust in their past relationship, whether it was somebody that cheated on them or whatever the case may be. Maybe they were in an abusive relationship, verbal or other. And I think that sometimes women are then scared of the physicality of man and scared of the fact that men are very, very physically powerful. And that testosterone really drives their actions. And I think that a lot of times we A, don't understand that piece of man, but B, when, things that happen in our past hurt us, like cheating or abuse or things like that, I think that sometimes women close those doors so tightly that they can't step into that authentic self because they don't even want to even consider being anything for a man. And again, that might fall into that limiting belief category, but have you worked with people that have that broken past, that you've been able to pull them out of those ruts and kind of resurface them into new relationships, whether that's with themselves or with another partner, man or woman?
Yeah, I love that you asked that question. That's such a powerful question. And yes, I do help women with that and support them. And it's a big challenge and it's a big issue. And I feel for women that have gone through those experiences, it can be really, really hard to even feel like there's another way of being. When you're so used to having some sort of pattern or experience in your life. And I think the biggest thing I want to say is that for any women that have felt broken or are feeling broken, this is something that can be healed, and it's not something that has to stay as your pattern. That once you're able to really heal those wounds within, it helps to actually raise your entire vibration, to be at a different level so that you're able to attract an entirely different level of man. So oftentimes, if we are in a broken state, we end up attracting similar vibration types of people that are also in their own ways broken or struggling with things. And so it kind of creates this just very toxic type of relationship. And if you've been staying in that kind of place or have not been able to do the healing work, that's the kind of people that are going to continue to come into your life. And so it can make it really hard to even believe that there's another type of person out there that wouldn't hurt you or that would actually treat you better. But I am here to say that you absolutely can attract those kinds of men that you do want, that are loving and nourishing, and that are not, in my eyes, toxic. But it does start with healing yourself. And I think the biggest challenge is actually understanding where the root cause of it comes from, like we were talking about with some of these limiting beliefs, and then just really embracing that there is another side, that there is a whole nother vision of who you can be, and choosing to take the leap to become that new woman. And with that new woman, that means setting boundaries. That means knowing what's okay and what's not okay, and telling that and communicating that and standing in that. It means rebuilding your self-worth and knowing that you are worthy of having that kind of man in your life. And from that place, then you don't even see these other types of men. It's like you have just risen above it, and all those men sink below, and the new men are able to come forth. It's not something that I encourage women to be open-hearted and loving when they're in that place of being broken, because it's a very, very vulnerable place. And being vulnerable when you haven't strengthened that core inside is where you get hurt. But if you've strengthened the core inside and you've sorted through the pain and you've released the pain and you have built up who you are and the love that you have for yourself, regardless of your experiences, then when you're able to come from that place of inner confidence and then be vulnerable and share how you're feeling, it has a very different effect.
What would you say are the most common questions that you get asked while you're coaching women, or what types of women commonly come to you? And maybe that can speak and resonate with the people that are out there that are wanting to chat with you about their love lives.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if I'm being vague. I'm trying to be as clear as possible, but it's very different for each person, right? Each person's journey is their own beautiful journey. And that's why I just love this work, is because it's not a cookie cutter model. And I think probably if it was just a 3-step process, hopefully it would be a lot easier and people wouldn't be struggling as much as they do. But the most important thing is to be able to just embrace that I want to do this work and I'm ready to change. And I think that's the hardest thing, is if you can get over that hurdle. That's when women come to me, they're very scared. They're very worried about not even knowing what that other side looks like, and not believing that they can actually get there. And so I really just try and show up as being this love angel and saying, take my hand, let me just guide you through this jump and this leap. And trust me that I will catch you when you feel like you're falling. But the biggest 2 types of women that come to me are either the ones that have been stuck in a pattern and are realizing that it's not healthy and need to get out, but just don't know what else to do to get out of that pattern. And also women that are just very, very ambitious and driven and very much in their masculine energy and are really struggling to be able to relax into that feminine energy, or don't know what that looks like because they haven't had those role models. Yeah, and the process for both types of women, for really helping them to embody this love, it's really about the awareness. 90% of it is the awareness. And so by doing the readings, doing reflections, doing the meditations, it's really to help women to just become more aware and just shine the flashlight inward and just see, oh my gosh, that's why. Okay, having those breakthroughs to realize, okay, like, this is why my life has been the way it's been. And then I can say, yes, and it doesn't need to be this way forever. We can shift this right now. And taking that leap, and then just letting them know, I've got you. I can hold you while you take that leap. And it's very metaphorical, because I literally just last year took this huge, huge leap in terms of just quitting my job and traveling the world and doing this business. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I had a few months of savings from my job. I'd never, ever worked for myself before. And I was so used to having that every 2-week paycheck. And I was thinking, how am I going to be traveling the world for a year and not having any money? I guess I really got to make this work. And I did. I took that scary, scary leap. And I felt like I was free falling for a while. But I knew within myself, because I've done so much self-work, that I was going to be okay, and that I was going to catch myself, and that no matter what happened, I was going to make it to the other side. And so I guess I feel like by myself going through this on many accounts, in relationships and business, that I can trust myself, and I can trust that other women, when they take the leap, they're going to be able to have that same success for themselves.
I'm so glad that you just touched on business, because I feel like we've been going into the relationship aspects and the self-love and confidence. And I wanted to sort of segue into business, because I'm curious, right? And you just mentioned this, that you took this big, scary leap and you felt like you were free falling. And so what I'm curious about is, when you were doing this, right, you took this next step in your life and you decided to go full force in your business. How did you sort of navigate the feminine and the masculine, right? Does that make sense? How do you bring that into your business? Like, what did you do to bring that into your business, right? Knowing that it doesn't all have to be go masculine, right? Mm-hmm. What's a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that wants to start their own business? They're scared. They don't know what to do. And they're tired of the burnout, because I feel like for us women especially, it's so easy to keep go, and then you hit the burnout because you're not being true to your inner goddess,
That is such a great question. And I love that you bring masculine and feminine into business, because that is such a huge part of it. And by me being able to understand the masculine and feminine energy so well, it makes a huge difference in business. And in the first, I'd say 3 months of my business, I didn't understand that distinction. I had it in relationships, but I wasn't bringing it into business. And I was pushing so hard. I was so used to the corporate world where it is go, go, go. And I remember my first launch just completely was a huge flop, because I was pushing it so hard and I just was not in alignment with myself. And I look back on it now and I'm like, I'm so glad that it was a flop. It taught me so much. And I had to take probably the first 3 months, even though I had just launched officially and this was my whole world now, I had to take a few months off even after launching, and just get back to myself and recalibrate and take those months to travel and just do me. And from that place, I was able to reconnect with my soul, my spirit, replenish, re-energize myself. And from that place is when I had this huge download of the entire course that I wanted to teach women on. And it was just so organic and it was so effortless. And I was able to just create, just birth and create from this feminine essence. And then from that place, then it was like, okay, now I have this beautiful creation. Beautiful. Now let me bring back in the launch. And I brought in and I did another launch, still from the masculine, trying to push out this launch for this new beautiful product that I had birthed. And it still didn't have the same kind of traction that I wanted. So it's been a big resiliency of just like putting out and then not working, putting out, not working, and just trying and testing things. And it wasn't until I really did click in that it doesn't have to be hard. This was a huge limiting belief that I had, that I have to work hard to get what I want. And when I finally was just said, you know what, I surrender, I trust that the right women are going to find this, they're going to love it. That's when it just started just completely flowing. And I have had massive success from that point. So now I've completely learned that feminine essence takes number one priority in the business, which means honoring how I'm feeling. It means not allowing stress to drive. It means taking self-care and doing hours of morning routines and yoga and meditation to really stay connected to my heart, before diving into the emails and diving into the coaching calls, to make sure that I'm really coming from a heart-based place always and not from my head. And from that place, all the masculine energy just kind of comes in naturally. It just kind of, just kind of infiltrates through, but the feminine essence is really leading. And that's what I've noticed with relationships too. When you bring feminine essence first, even into relationships, masculine energy is beautiful and when it's harnessed in the right ways. But I think that feminine energy is the container and then the masculine energy is the core.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I love that explanation. And I think that that'll be really helpful to some listeners, especially to the ones that want to launch and they're scared. They don't know how to trust and let go and surrender. I think that that's something that's needed for a lot of people to hear.
Yeah.
Teal, what was the biggest piece or point of adversity that you faced while creating this business? And, whether that was, creating the actual curriculum or creating, the connections, like what getting the customers and clients, like what has been the biggest point of adversity for you, and how have you kind of grown past that, or how are you working through that?
Yeah. The biggest adversity I've faced has been twofold. One has been internet challenges of just traveling and trying to find good internet. I have a lot of stories about that, including one time I was in the middle of a massive webinar with so many women all just soaking up my message, and then the internet just cuts out in the middle of it. And I'm in Italy, I'm on the Amalfi Coast, and I have no access to internet, and it killed me because it felt like such a letdown to all these women. So internet, making sure and learning and testing out, making sure I have good internet is a big one. But the other one has been overcoming my own fears and my own limiting beliefs throughout the process. of really stepping into being seen and owning my authenticity. It's a challenge for us all, ladies. It really is. But for me, I think the best way I've been able to do that is actually by coaching myself through it. And I have this little tool that I use that I highly recommend. On my phone, I take out the voice recorder app and I put it up to my ear, and I'll take a walk and I'll just talk to myself as if I was talking to my best friend. Because I am my best friend. And I'll just start venting about however I'm feeling. And I'll just be like, oh gosh, Teal, today was horrible. I just can't, I'm just feeling so blah, 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 blah. And then after I'm able to get that out, it almost feels like someone's listening because it's recording. And so then after I've gotten it out, then this other voice comes out and I just start talking to myself through the other voice. It's okay, Teal. It's all going to be fine. Like, what's really going on here? What's really bothering you? And I just have this weird conversation with myself. And if anyone saw me, they'd probably think I'm crazy, but at least it looks like I'm talking on the phone. But that has helped me through. That tool has helped me through so many tough times when I couldn't figure out why I was feeling so stuck. And it's helped me to get the answers that I needed to be able to release and let go.
You said something as you were talking, you said really stepping into being seen. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, really having enough confidence in myself that I will be accepted for who I am without trying to be anybody else. And that is a very, very big challenge for many, many people. And it's natural, right? Because our whole social dynamics is all about being accepted so that we are kept in the little pack and we're not isolated so we don't starve out in the wild all on our own. So it's been ingrained into us for our entire past generations that you need to stay accepted in the social tribe so that you survive. And I think more and more we are realizing that those are past conditioning and that actually the only person that we can be is the person that is truest to ourselves, and that we are put on this earth to be our authentic selves because that authentic self is the gift to the world, and that trying to be anybody else but yourself is doing the world a disservice. And that's been a really, really tough thing to release, but to really own and stand in.
What's your biggest, boldest, and at the same time vulnerable moment that you can remember throughout this whole process?
It's definitely been stepping into my truest calling of really owning this work that I'm put here on the earth to do, and really helping women to recognize and know that they can have everything that they want in their life, and that they can really be able to have that nourishing, loving, deeply committed relationship without having to sacrifice who they are. And that in being their most beautiful, authentic self, they can really honestly achieve their highest potential.
What's something that is extremely vulnerable for you and scary as hell, but you knew that it needed to happen, and it's what made you really bold, and at the same time showed you what's on the other side of that fear?
Yeah, I remember being in Portugal, and we were about 3 weeks into the trip, and I had this moment of, oh my God, what if it doesn't work out? What if my whole life falls apart? What if, Spencer and I end up arguing on this trip the whole time and he ends up leaving me? What happens if I'm not able to really launch this business the way I want, and I run out of money and I'm stuck out here in Europe? What happens if just everything falls apart? It was a really, really scary moment. And all I wanted to do was literally crawl under the covers and hide and die. And I was feeling those fears just encroaching on me, like this cloud, this dark cloud that was just getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. And I remember having to face those fears in the face and say, okay, do I want to let these fears control my life, or do I want to push through them and prove to myself what's possible? And I had to take off the covers and say, no, I am not going to let these fears control my life, because I knew that if I stayed there and I just laid in that fear, that it would, and that everything that I was afraid of would actually come true. But it was in that moment, I remember I reached out to a girlfriend and I said, hey, I'm just starting my business. I'm afraid about, all these things. And I just laid it out for her. And I was like, do you happen to have just any sort of side gigs, things that you need help with your business? Just so that I can know that I have some money coming in. Because right now I'm afraid I'm going to run out of money, even though I had plenty of savings in the bank. And she said, sure, absolutely. I actually need someone to help me project manage this program. And I said, well, I've been a project manager for so long. Okay, cool. And it was in that moment, she paid me like $200. And it was in that moment that I realized, like, oh my gosh, I don't need a corporate job to make money. I can make money other ways. And that really helped me to move out of the fear of scarcity and know that there is an abundance of ways to make it in the world. And then I said to Spencer, Spence, I am so afraid of this and that. I'm so afraid of this. What do you think? And I just shared that fear. And I was in that moment of just being my most open, vulnerable self, just all the things I was afraid of. And he just reassured me. He says, these are so silly, Teal. Of course not. Like, we're in this together. We're going to make this work. And it was something about, and then I did a post on social media and I said, this is who I am. I am a modern goddess, damn it. And I am here to be seen for who I am. And it was just these big 3 things of just saying, no, like, I see you, fear, and I release you. I am letting you go. I am not letting you control me. And from there, it was just, I had made the leap and everything has fallen into place from there.
I love that you own your just innate ability to inspire others. And we just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. I think that we've just had a true, vulnerable, and bold conversation with you. And I think that a lot of the listeners are going to be very excited about all these nuggets. And Teal, where can we find you? Where can people reach out to you? If you just want to plug real quick your website or your Facebook handle, or how people could get in touch with you potentially after this call. And of course, we'll include that in the show notes, but just for people that want to reach out, how can they get to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So any ladies that want to chat further, I would love to connect with you. My Instagram is @relaxintolove. So you can go on there for daily inspiration and fun little sassy quotes. And then my website is tealelisabeth.com, and that's with an S, tealelisabeth.com. And you can learn all about me, what I'm up to, and join my newsletter and get tons of other amazing value and tips from my life and share this journey. So thank you so much, ladies. This has been such an honor to be on your podcast. I'm so glad to get to support you and to share everything I have with all the listeners.
Thank you for listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. For more information on today's speaker, please visit us at boldandvulnerablepodcast.com.
And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading the love by being bold and vulnerable. Thank you. We love you.